Розпочинати. Доброго дня, шановні колеги, шановні представники закладів вищої освіти України та Латвійської Республіки. З задоволенням розпочинаємо чергове міжнародне науково-педагогічне стажування, яке організоване Балтійською міжнародною академією за підтримки Центру українсько-європейського співробітництва. Я від імені Центру українсько-європейського співробітництва хочу представити вам спікера сьогоднішнього, відомого вченого Латвійської Республіки, автора багатьох цікавих книг з психології емоцій, Гершон Бреслав, доктор психологічних наук, асоційований професор, Балтійська міжнародна академія. Він сьогодні буде працювати з нами протягом години над темою емоційний інтелект, як розпознавати емоції та керувати ними. Гершон, please speak.
Thank you. Yes, I will start. Dear colleagues, it's nice to see some of you, and I today saw only one woman and some men. It's maybe today it's priority of male company, but we will start, and surely I will stay a little time for your questions too. You can see my file, and we will discuss some issues. First of all, I should mention classification of emotional field, what phenomena we will differentiate in psychology. You can see that there are two main criteria. One of them is how long is this emotional process. We understand that some emotions are very, very short. For example, fear or anger. But some of them are more lifelong. And we speak about, for example, such sentiments as the love, hate, jealousy, and so on. I hear that person can feel these sentiments all life. No love, for example. Well, and this means that we should differentiate. It's one criteria, situative and outside situation, lifelong phenomena. From the other side, we can differentiate emotional events according to its significance. For example, for our fears, it's very important subject matter of this fear. Why it's so dangerous for us. And if it is not dangerous, we don't feel fear. And this question, what is significant for the person? It is a subject matter of particular emotion. And we have many such emotion, and every emotion has own target, own subject matter. But there are some emotional events that has no very clear target and subject matter. It's our reactions on the environment and on the stimulus outside. And it's our condition, and it's our state, lifelong state. And you see that we can differentiate this on two groups. One group is state and moods. Mainly we differentiate these states and moods according positive or negative, or arousal or tranquility. but we can differentiate, can use other criteria too. But all these states and moods are short enough. It's limited by concrete situations. But sometimes our emotional field can be represented with emotional traits and abilities. How we can react, how we can overcome stress, how we can become in the car situations as in your country. Surely it's not easy, and we can see the very different reactions and different abilities to overcome this permanent stress. We can see this double function of emotion. From the one side, it's self-regulation. Self-regulation, we can divide it on the two groups. One group, it's a representation of potentially topical cognitive content for a person and appropriate mobilization of the body to particular actions. It's surely increase of this activation of our nervous system. But sometimes it's minimize our mobilization, and we can speak about demobilization of the body, relaxation, for example. But the result of our actions, outcomes, should be transferred, not all outcomes, but significant outcomes of our activity, could be transferred to the level of motivational variables. Kurt Lewin used such concept as quasi-потребность, quasi-need, new, more or less artificial need. From the other side, we can see this external regulation of emotions. We try with our emotions influence on other persons. And external regulation, we can divide it on two groups too. Communicative influence on moods, thoughts, and goals of others. And second, correction of our own moods, thoughts, and goals in the process of interaction. Surely, sometimes we're interested influence on some attitudes of persons. We will change their opinion about some events or actions or tasks. And sometimes we, with our own emotions, we try and we can change these other person moods and thoughts. And this process of interaction and influence was in both sides. We influence on our environment, and other people and objects influence on us. And it's a permanent process. And this is connected from the one side with cognition, from the other side with emotion. And in 1987, Lane and Schwartz interpreted ability to recognize and describe emotion in oneself and others as a cognitive skill. But we should understand that it's between these two biggest fields, cognitive field and emotional field. And in 19th, Meyer, Solovey, and Caruso published some works. One of these works published in 2000s they distinguished the ability model from mixed model. There are many models of emotional intelligence, and Meyer Solovey proposed this ability model. They conceptualize emotional intelligence as a set of mental skills that can be assessed with performance tests. And the first comprehensive performance test of emotional intelligence was the multi-factor emotional intelligence scale, which led to a briefer test, the Meyer-Solovey-Caruso Emotional Intelligence Test, MSCEIT. Today there are a third version. I used in my work second version. These tests consist of 141 items and takes approximately from 30 till 45 minutes to complete. And MCEIT provides 15 main scores: total emotional intelligence score, 2 area scores, 4 branch scores, and 8 task scores. In addition to these 15 scores, there are 3 supplemental scores. And as a performance test, the MSCIT assesses the ability to manage emotions, for example, with vignettes describing particular emotional problems, asking participants to rate a number of possible actions on a scale ranging from very ineffective to very effective. Responses are evaluated through a comparison of responses made by either expert or normative sample. I think it's very important that we should use this normative sample, and this normative sample should be big enough. Mixed models, in contrast, are based primarily on popular depiction of emotional intelligence. I think that most popular is Goleman book about emotional and social intelligence, and includes 3 classes of constructs: perceived emotional abilities, competencies, and personality traits. For instance, Berlin included the perceived ability to handle relationships and traits such as optimism in his model of emotional intelligence. I think it's important, this optimism, this maybe trait is very effective for different age persons, especially for old people, but not only for old people. It works for all of us. Our mental system works for the future. We think about future, and it's impossible without this prognostic ability of our mind. I will show you only some items from these 141 items. You see only 2 of them, 1 verbal item and 1 pictorial item. You see that verbal item, you have text. John felt stressed and became a bit anxious when she thought about all the works she needed to do. When her manager brought her an additional project, she felt what she felt when her manager brought her additional project. And you have these 5 options, and you should select the best from these 5. What's your opinion? Vadim, what you can choose from these 5? No, there are different versions: self-conscious, jittery, ashamed, maybe. But if you have strong motivation, the correct answer is overwhelmed. A, first option. It's not easy. You should think. You should know good enough language. Surely we should give to person this test in the mother language, because surely it's this dictionary of person of other language is not so big. Maybe we don't know, but we cannot be sure about person's skills in different languages, and surely we should translate, and translation adaptation, in the adaptation process, this translation is only part of them, and it should be translated by 2 or 3 different persons, independent persons, and later you should elaborate new version and consistent with all these participants. It's very long process and complicated enough. Next item, pictorial item, you see this photo and how much is each feeling below expressed in this picture. In pictorial item, you have different scale, estimation scale. You see that you should say something about all these 5 emotions, about be happy, be sad, be fear, anger, and disgust. But you should emphasize what is better in this situation, what emotions arouse this photo. No, maybe sad, maybe fear. Well, and there are many verbal and many pictorial items. There are photos of human faces too, and it's more easy to identify this particular face with particular emotion. You see this model of Meyer Caruso-Salovey. Its first model was perceiving emotion, using emotion, understanding emotion, and managing emotion. And in second model, there are second part is changed. No, first part is understandable, it's identification of emotions in different objects, on human faces, in designs, in music, in stories. And using emotion, it's decision-making on the basis of emotion. And synthesis. Later, they change in second model, it was changed into facilitating third. Facilitating third, these emphasize more this ability to generate, use, and feel emotion as necessary part of our communication process and our communicate feelings, or we employ them in other cognitive processes. For example, for a comparison of 2 different emotions represented in 2 faces. For example, who is more anger, to compare these 2 persons, or to compare different emotions. Next one, understanding emotion, the ability to understand emotional information. You heard maybe that women are more more clever, I think more smart, they have better skills how to identify emotional information, because they emphasize in our communication process not text but intonation, these paralinguistic elements. And for them, these paralinguistic elements are more important. For men, yes, we emphasize mainly these content elements. And sometimes it's not correct, because sometimes content is not so significant, but this emotional information, this intonation, paralinguistic element that show us emotional condition and emotional attitude is more important sometimes. Yes, in informal communication, it's more important. Managing emotions. Its ability to be open to feelings. In English, it's very often this in group training, these showmen used such concept as self-disclosure. Self-disclosure, it means that you can open your feelings to other people. And in group work, it's very important phase of this social interaction inside group. And surely we can modulate this emotion and influence with our emotions other persons. And through this representation, we can promote this personal understanding in growth, especially in groups in which the task is special to develop some emotions and feelings. Well, you see that one of the ability in emotional intelligence, it's coping with stress. You know this general concept of Selye. According to Selye, it's general adaptation syndrome, unspecific reaction of organism to danger stimulus consists from 3 stages, and we can see these 3 stages: LM reaction of organism in the face of danger. You see this stimulus stressor. Later, we see the stage of resistance when we can adapt to this stimulus, and 3rd stage, exertion of our organism, because our physical abilities are limited. Yes, we know that there are big individual differences of this, how long is the resistance stage. But really, we can influence with our emotions and understand and change something only on this resistance stage. On the exertion stage, it's impossible really change our actions. And talking about coping strategies, we know classical differentiation by Folkman and Lazarus. In Berkeley list of coping ways, they selected 2 main strategies. It's problem-oriented coping, when we try to be in this contradiction, to be in conflict or in searching social support, or we can elaborate some plans, strategy, how we can overcome the problem. And second direction, it's emotion-oriented coping. Emotional-oriented coping means that we can improve our self-control, increase our trying to be on the appropriate level, or we can escape from the situation or distancing from this danger. We can reappraise this danger and to say for yourself that it's not so dangerous, that I can overcome this problem. And it can be acceptance of responsibility, that yes, it's my duty, and maybe it's my guilt. Sometimes it's difficult to differentiate responsibility and guilt, but we understand that guilt, it's esteem that we are not only responsible, but we should do something, and we escape from this doing. It was action and not realized action. And there are other differentiation of these coping strategies. Stone and Neal elaborated alternative measure consisted from open questions on problem solving. At current day, were selected 8 coping styles: distraction, redefinition of situation, direct action, attack, for example, catharsis, only emotional feeling, and through it you can imagine that it happens with you. It could be acceptance of this situation and this stress. It could be the search of social support, ask somebody. It could be relaxation. And one of that, Stone and Neal add this religion aspect. Because for some people, religious people, it can help at the moment of this stress. We know these different options. Next one. Karen Sarni represent in our own book, published in 1999, 8 main capacities or abilities of that together can be named as emotional competence. There are no big difference between emotional intelligence and emotional competence. Maybe emotional competence is a little more cognitive and better represented in our consciousness. You can see these 8 blocks or elements. Awareness of one's emotional states. We can teach children about one's emotional states. It's not difficult to use these names of emotions. Second, ability to discern others' emotion, how to differentiate and to identify these other person's emotions. Third, ability to use the vocabulary of emotion, how to describe, for example, that I don't like your actions because these actions arouse me anxiety and fears. You can describe that we using this vocabulary of emotion, this name of emotions, what you feel at the moment. And with this, you can influence on other person's actions. It's one way how we can overcome stress in the conflict between two persons. Fourth is capacity for empathic and sympathetic involvement. It's not easy because it's not essential growth of our personality that we become able to feel empathy and sympathy to other persons. And we know for delinquent persons, there are the lack of empathy, not zero, but it's very low level of empathy. And really empathy we can develop only in family upbringing. Children that are outside in orphanage, in special institutions, they have very small, very little these empathy feelings, and they sometimes they will, but they cannot feel the same emotions and regret to some emotional problems of other persons. But in the normal family, it works. It will be developed sympathy and empathy to other people. First of all, to parents, to mother, and secondly, to other people. Fifth, it's understanding of possible differences between inner emotional state and expression. We understand that, for example, forgiveness. We can forgive in your mind. We can forgive other person, but not express this forgiveness. And it's two different things, internal and external forgiveness. Internal, it's emotional state only, and this external forgiveness is expression of your forgiveness. Please, I forgive you. I don't feel this resentment to you, anger to you. I like you. Six is in this Caroline Sarney book, Capacity for Adaptive Coping with Destructive Emotions. It's very important capacity too, because some emotions are so long as, for example, depression, that it can destruct all activities, including very important vital activities, as eating, for example. And you see how hard it will be. The outcomes could be lethal. The seventh, it's awareness that emotions represent the nature and structure of relationships. It's these elements I mentioned, that it's very important paralinguistic elements of our communication. In these paralinguistic elements, emotions are represented mainly. And last one is capacity for emotional self-efficacy, that we should be more or less able to show how effective we can understand ourselves and others people. shade, on this slide, you can see two different emotions and two different activities. You see one activity is aggression, and we see that boy is very happy with this aggression act. And surely in the future it will be dangerous for his personality development. Second photo is about this help, when girl help to boy with special educational needs, and this help can develop this empathy and sympathy to other person, especially to person who had some problems in own activities. How improve emotional competence? And we should understand that surely there are some technique how improve this emotional competence or emotional intelligence. One of them is perspective taking and putting ourselves mentally in the role of the other. And it could produce pro-social behavior if it is regular enough and if we can organize a positive reinforcement of these activities. And surely it's very popular today, development of social skills and sensitivity in the group work. We have many different group work types. And you understand that every training should be specialized, should be directed on the concrete target. For example, to minimize our fears, or to maximize our empathy, or to elaborate social skills, or improve these social skills, and so on. And there are questions on these questions you can answer and to get understanding that these issues more or less clear for you. Please, what questions you have? You can speak in Ukrainian mova. I will try to understand. I see only one person, Vadim. Well, thank you very much for your attention. You can send me your questions to write and to send me your questions. I will answer on them.
Щиро дякуємо, пане Гершон.
Thank you so
Будемо
much.
прощатися. Дякую всім пане Гершон, за дуже цікаву лекцію. Дякую за підтримку Латвії, нашої країни. До побачення.
До побачення, дякуємо.
До побачення.
До побачення.
Дякуємо.
До побачення,
До побачення,
дякуємо.
панове.
Дякую.
До побачення.